Hello, Blue Jays fans. Welcome to episode 236 of the Jays from the Couch radio podcast, brought to you by, of course, jaysfromthecouch.com. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of our podcast. We really appreciate it. And if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, thank you so much for giving us a shot. This live streaming thing is still relatively new, and we do appreciate you helping us learn how to do this because it's an interesting experience, but we're happy to be doing it. Head over to jaysfromthecouch.com for all your Blue Jays coverage this offseason and into the season. Don't forget, every week you can watch us live here on YouTube or Facebook. And you can follow us on social media on the Twitter machine at Jays from Couch, on Facebook. We're everywhere you find us. And of course, the podcast is in even more places. Apple, Google, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you find a podcast, you will find Jays from the Couch. So, without further ado, I'm your host, Sean Doyle. You can follow me on Twitter at Doyle JFtC. We're back for another week. We've got a great episode, and what better time? We've got the hot stove, as it were, the off-season about to commence, and we've got a lot to talk about this week. We're going to talk about the pitching rotation, the departure of Chase Anderson and what that means, if anything. And we're going to look at a couple of articles that get us set for the off-season, and we're going to throw some predictions at you and all of that fun stuff. It's another great episode, and to help me, I can't do this alone. I could. It wouldn't be very good. So I brought in some of the best and brightest, and I will add them in here in a hot second. There she is. Karen, good evening to you.
Good evening, Sean.
How are you doing tonight?
I'm good. How are you?
Just peachy. Just peachy. I think we're twinning tonight, Karen. We both have our red Jays from the Couch shirts on. Look at that. All right. All right, and
promote the website.
Absolutely. I don't know if that's coming through loud and clear or not here, but we'll do our best. We got our logo up there. This is great. And to make it even better, Steve Ficchetti down in good old US of A on close to the eve of an election, but we're not going to get political here. Just I will say, though, Steve, I know I just introduced you and I haven't even said hello yet, but for all of our U.S. listeners, get out and vote. That's what I will say. Get out and vote.
Yes.
Anyway, Steve, good evening to you.
Yeah, well, it's always fun to be here. Nice being your neighbor to the south. Hopefully I won't need to go further south after the election, that I can actually stay in my home in Pittsburgh and not fear nuclear annihilation. But why keep it simple? Let's keep it interesting.
Agreed. But just consider, Steve, if things don't work out the way you hope or would like, instead of moving south, you can always move north, right? I mean, Canada is a very welcoming place. I mean, obviously, once we get this global pandemic thing out of the way, that whole pesky business, we may be a little bit more welcoming even.
Well, I have family throughout Ontario and throughout Canada, so I'm sure somebody would take me in.
Absolutely. We'll take in anybody, especially our American friends. So we've got some craziness going on here. And this, I feel like every year when we get to this point in the Major League Baseball offseason, before we get into talking specifically about our Toronto Blue Jays, I feel like there should be some kind of public service announcement, right, where we kind of preface everything for the next 3 months, at least, with it's only a rumor. And I say that because you're going to get, and God love him, I hate to pick on people, but John Paul Morosi might be one of the worst at this. The throwing the qualifying words of could and might and maybe and should, and then passing that off like it's actual news, right? And then of course getting people all hyped up and psyched up, and by the end of this episode we may be guilty of doing the same thing, or at least I will be. So JP, I feel you, buddy. But keeping in mind that everything is hypothetical, right? When we're at this time of the year, we can do best guesses. We can try and figure out logical additions or whatever have yous. But at the end of the day, unless we are directly involved in the front office, sitting at the table and their whiteboard and all that stuff, it is just guessing, right? And that's what makes this so fun. In fact, there's a little bit more freedom in guessing, right? Because you don't necessarily have to be right, which is why guys like John Paul Morosi throw in the coulds and shoulds and woulds, right? You don't have to be right. That's right. That's right. Anyway, having said that, we're going to get into, in here in a second, we're going to get into the potential moves and things like that. And we've got a couple of comments and whatnot here ready to go, and we will bring those into the show. If you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, you can add a comment and it comes here under the show and it'll appear right across the screen. We'll set that up for you. And it's a cool new feature, part of our expanded Blue Jays coverage. But first, Karen, Chase Anderson, bye-bye.
Yeah, yes. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. Sorry to say, but he just really didn't pitch well for the Jays, and I was hoping they would not exercise that option, and thank goodness they didn't. And yep, sorry.
And Steve, it could have been a good move. In going back a year, right? It could have been a smart move on their part. And then, of course, the season got shut down, and progressively that decision looked worse and worse as the year went on, right?
Well, when you sign a pitcher like Chase Anderson, you're not signing a Trevor Bauer. You're not signing, a Dave Steve or whatever. You pretty much, whatever you get out of it, you've got to be happy. And then if you don't get anything out of it, well, it's only money.
It's only money. And I'm glad to hear you say that, because that's going to be a theme this episode. This week, we're going to it's only money. And
although it was a prospect that they traded for him, but not an overly high prospect, I don't think so.
No, it wasn't. In all honesty,
it made such an impact on me. I can't even remember how we got there. In fact, probably by American Thanksgiving, I won't even remember unless I go to Baseball Reference that he pitched for the Blue Jays.
Yeah.
In a trade with the Brewers, Chad Spanberger that comes to mind. Anyway.
Exactly. That basically is the point right there, right? Like, nothing gained, nothing lost. It happens in baseball. So what? Bye-bye, Chase Anderson. All the best. Good luck. I am not going to miss that mustache that he was that he was rocking. And I don't like using the word rocking because ew. Anyway, but when you look at, and this is where we're going to kind of start getting into the meat and potatoes of this episode here, Karen, when you look at the Blue Jays and heading into the offseason and their needs, right? Really, if I were to kind of prioritize the list here, the starting pitching's got to be it, right?
Definitely high up on it, yeah.
Because you've got Hyunjin Ryu, Tanner Rourke, and maybe Nate Pearson. Nobody knows for how long, right? So, I mean, starting pitching has to be a priority. And so, Steve, first of all, before we get into the nitty gritty about it, would you concur that starting pitching has to be the priority here?
I would like to think so, but pitchers only go 3 innings anymore for the Blue Jays, so you could just sign a whole bunch of relievers, sign 20 relievers, and just kind of mix and match and put them in and out, and then all the starting pitching, we're getting all stressed out. That's okay.
Oh my God!
We have openers, we have middle guys, we have enders, or whatever you want to call them.
Steve, I'm only laughing because I saw Karen's reaction to your idea. Not that it's anyway. Let's bring the comments are coming in fast and furious here, and I want to let's fire this one in here. Why should the Jays sign a mid-tier starter when they don't need one? They need an ace to go with this Ryu. It's a good question. When you look at, and the reason we bring that question up is because when you look at what needs to be done, right, in the past, and maybe even this season, heading into this coming season, we've seen let's just put a kind of a placeholder in there, right? Like Tanner Roark might be, the placeholder of all placeholders. I know Steve's a fan of him, but realistically speaking, that's what he was brought in for. Same with Matt Shoemaker to a degree. So moving forward, Karen, do you see them still looking for placeholders when you've got like Alec Manoah and Simeon Woods Richardson, still a bit away, right? So Karen, are you looking for those placeholders? Are you looking for a mid-tier placeholder? Are you really looking for, let's go after the best, it's showtime now?
Right. It's a really good question, and I think the success that they had in 2020 may have changed that somewhat. I mean, they're not or they shouldn't be in a position to say, okay, World Series or bust in 2021, but I don't want to see them going after placeholders per se. I would like to see that, because they've got a taste of playoffs with this group, and I think they're in a position to continue moving forward. So I would like to see that whatever moves they do make be to improve them in the present and hopefully in the future, but definitely in the present.
Right. So, Steve, again, let's fire the question up here. Where are you on this placeholder, mid-tier kind of guy, or an ace?
I don't think they need an ace. I think Ryu is their ace. He's just such a quality pitcher. And you can't take your eyes off him when he's pitching a game because you can just see the gears turning, and he knows he's gonna he wants this pitch here or this pitch there. I mean, he is everything you could ask for with a young staff, because a young staff can see the work he puts in and the thought he puts in to every start that he has. I don't know that the Blue Jays should throw money at a mid-tier starter. I think they could easily on the trade market get one. And I mean, and not to go all JP Morosi on you, but throughout the day, I've had various conversations where basically saying that Joe Musgrove comes back to the Blue Jays in a package for a lot of different things. I'm not going to go specifics because I wasn't able to confirm with people that I would actually trust to say it's happening, but several local couch type of outlets are saying that Joe Musgrove and Adam Frazier are on their way to Toronto. It's just a matter of them announcing the deal. And I think you can get more value on the trade market than you would in the free agent market. You're going to have to spend more for a guy that maybe is not going to be here in 2 and 3 years, as Karen has referred to, the placeholder. You need more arms. You don't necessarily need to spend big on to get those arms to keep getting you and moving you back into another playoff spot.
Well, and speaking of, this might be a good time to throw this question here from Jim, Jays from the Couch writer, Jim Scott. Feels it's better to sign a reclamation project, someone with bottom of the rotation ability, but just a hint of upside. And I don't know where I honestly am with this, and I'll tell you why. And I think this comment kind of has a lot to do with it in my mind. We have enough mid-tier. I think that I'm getting distracted by all the comments coming in and getting thrown off here, but I really do think that they do have some options that if you're going to go after a reclamation project, I don't know that anybody in-house is less of an option than a reclamation project. You might as well go with Thomas Hatch or Anthony Kay, and so on and so on. Right? Like if you're going to go for reclamation project, you might as well just do that in house and then focus your energy and your resources elsewhere. Maybe finding a third baseman, Oakland, or I don't know, just throwing that out there. But you know what I mean, right? Like just if you're going to go. And I hate using this term, but dumpster diving, which is, something that Blue Jays fans are all too familiar with, given this comment right here, right? Like, the Jays are cheap, right? So a lot of dumpster diving in the past, Alex Anthopoulos, and so on and so on and so on. Maybe it's just better to go in-house then. However, what I do think is that there's this, they're at a pivotal point here. They're at a crossroads in my mind. When you look at the Toronto Blue Jays, I don't believe you can make an incremental move this offseason. I really feel like now might be the time to kind of move all your chips in and just go for it. When you look around baseball, right? You look around and people are slashing payroll. Cleveland and teams in that kind of, I don't know, category, I guess. Teams are cutting, right? The idea is that nobody's going to spend this offseason because they've been poor Major League Baseball teams that are losing money, And, yeah.
Not convinced, however.
Yeah, exactly. However, that may be an excuse to hold back the purse strings. It might be time for Toronto to just go crazy. And not crazy, because I don't think that's the right word when you're talking about this front office, but channeling a little bit of the Alex Anthopoulos, right, Karen? I mean, I think let's start there. Karen, am I crazy? Is this the time to go a little bit Alex Anthopoulos?
I think it's time to move forward and to be a little less conservative than they have been. Although this past season they did make some trades at the deadline to try to get better. But I mean we were talking about, there was an article. It started with the new owner of the Mets, Steve Cohen, and his mega bucks, and it's pretty clear that he plans to spend on the Mets. But the article went on to name 6 other MLB teams that are expected to be spenders this offseason, and our Blue Jays were right in there. And apparently more than one agent has said that the Blue Jays have contacted them to at least express interest in players who were going to be free agents. So, while that doesn't necessarily mean that anything's going to get done, it's at least a first step. And I think it's a reason for cautious optimism. So, I mean, if a whole bunch of other teams are going to cry poor and not want to spend very much this season, and they're one of the few that are going to do it, hey, why not?
Yeah, and I think this comment from Jim has a lot to do with it, Steve, that, you can get more value through trade, sure, but I tend to agree with Jim that free agents might actually be cheaper this year. With teams not willing to spend, they're not going to get into bidding wars, certainly. So maybe this is the time to go big and make a move here.
And myself, I just, so sorry to jump back in, I'm more comfortable seeing them spend money than give away a bunch of valued other talent to trade. So see what happens.
So Steve, is this the year to go spending?
I think you spend some. You certainly increase your payroll. I am up of a different view from you guys. What a big shock. That I think you do go incremental this year. You give maybe some of those young arms some time at AAA. I mean, this past season was just so crazy. I think it's important for a pitcher to get X number of innings in the minor leagues before they become a regular part of the rotation. Bullpen's a little bit different. I think, and Jim made an interesting point, are free agents cheaper? Potentially they could be, but I think you could strike quickly through the trade market and then add players a little bit closer to spring training to kind of round things out. I just don't believe the year before a collective bargaining agreement needs to be negotiated. I just don't see players or agents even wanting to sign long term, and that's what the Blue Jays need. They need long term pieces, not just the placeholder for 1 year. They need the long term pieces. So I would still stand by and say, don't get too far ahead of yourself, but use the trade market, strike early, because there are a lot of nervous and desperate teams. Take advantage of that, and then add to what you're able to get through the trade market as you get closer to spring training, when you have nervous players who are afraid they're not going to have a job and might be willing to sign even at an even lower rate.
Yeah, I get that. My only concern is that if you're paying attention to this show or anything being written across baseball, and you're a major league executive and you're looking at the market, you might be able to ask for a bit more on the trade deadline than a team might be comfortable to pay. Whereas striking early is a good idea, but perhaps in the free agent market, which makes it difficult because the free agent market has, like, if you're looking at pitching, there's not a whole lot there. Trevor Bauer, sure. And then after that, it gets kind of dicey. Marcus Stroman, it's rather uninspiring. Let's just put it that way. And if you're looking for a reclamation project or whatever have you, I do have an idea, but we'll get to that here in a little bit. Mm-hmm. I would like to get to this this piece at MLB.com. Actually, before we do, let's address this from Matt. How much does possibly not playing in Toronto in 2021 harm Atkins' off-season plans? Steve, I know you wrote a piece at Jays from the Couch about along the lines of this, so I'm going to throw that to you first.
Okay, I don't know that it affects the plans, because I think they're already planning on either having limited fans or having to start the season not in Toronto. It saddened me to have to write the article that I did, but I wrote it because Blue Jay fans can't just hide their head in the sand and pretend it might not be a reality. Plus, I think that the Blue Jays owe it to their players, they owe it to their fan base to come out and say, okay, as of right now, we're going to play in Dunedin. We're going to play the first week, month, 2 months. We're going to play it in Dunedin. That way, because most of the players might already have a place to live there. We're not inconveniencing them too much. Unless we are told specifically, yes, we're going to be able to open the borders. And I don't think anybody can say that. I think the Blue Jays need to come out and announce saying we're going to play in Dunedin or whatever they pick. But Dunedin was the place I focused in the article because it just made the most sense as far as convenience for players and their families and just the team in general. I mean, I understand it's a minor league stadium and blah, 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 blah. But the Blue Jays just spent a lot of money in upgrades. And in the upgrades, they have major league caliber lighting because they want to have more evening exhibition games. So I really think that Atkins is gonna present a budget, he and Shapiro, to Roger Communications, saying, look, I understand revenues are down, but I think that we need to keep moving forward. We need to spend some money now. Maybe not go as wild as a lot of people want them to, and just go from there. I mean, I can't imagine that any major league team is really expecting to have a normal 2021, at least to the opening of the season, and their budgets are already going to reflect that. Ergo, that's why we had so many players that got let go, that didn't have their options picked up, that you look at it and say, how can that happen?
Yeah. So, Karen, I'm going to throw the same question to you. How much of an impact is this playing in Toronto being up in the air? How much is that going to impact their plans, do you think?
Right. I mean, there's been a fair bit of speculation that I've seen that in terms of free agents, would they want to sign with the Blue Jays when right now it's more like the Who Jays, where they're going to be playing, and will that be a factor in people making their decisions? And it very well could be, but I guess the way I look at it and the way I hope players look at it is that this situation isn't permanent. Like one day this will all be resolved. My own prediction, hope to goodness that it's true, is that, partway through next year, I'm thinking maybe next spring there'll be a vaccine, it'll be safe, effective, widely available, and no later than July 1st, Happy Canada Day, the Jays will be back playing in Toronto. There will be fans allowed to go to the games. So, like, I hope that any potential free agents who might consider the Jays aren't letting that be too much of a factor.
Yeah, I wonder the same thing. I think, especially if you're looking at signing somebody for 3 or 4 years, maybe not even a full season outside of Toronto, playing in Buffalo or whatever have you. I don't know if it's that much of a factor. I wonder if Canadian taxers are more of a factor than this home field issue.
Yeah, on that note, maybe people will be happy the longer they don't have to play in Toronto, because if you're not earning income in Canada, that you're not paying Canadian tax on it. So it could be a positive.
Fair point. Fair point. Hey, Matt, you're welcome. Thank you for the comments. I'm glad that we could weird you out and have your TV talk to you. It's the wave of the future, bud. Wave of the future, Matt. But thanks again for the comment, Matt. I do appreciate it. There's some great discussion going on our YouTube channel. So for anybody listening later on, head over to our Jays from the Couch YouTube channel and participate in the conversation. As always, Jim Scott is over there, Jays from the Couch writer, and he has no problem generating discussion and all of that. So go on over there and participate as well. And we could even throw your comments here on the show. I want to get into this article, though. Anthony Castrovince of MLB put out a piece, okay, on the one hand, I see what he's saying, okay? I get it. He's saying that, Toronto could be, and there's that could, right? Could be in a position where they could add both Francisco Lindor and Trevor Bauer. Now, the whole idea of Trevor Bauer, kind of makes me icky. It makes me feel like I need a shower. The guy's personality to me is not somebody that this front office will pursue. They got rid of Marcus Stroman, who is far less off-putting, like miles better than Trevor Bauer. So they got rid of him because his personality didn't fit. So if we think that they're going after Trevor Bauer, I'd be shocked. This hat right here, I will eat it.
Don't do that.
Well, I mean, it's probably impossible. I don't know. I've never tried before, but if they sign Trevor Bauer, I will make a go of it. I guarantee you that right here on the YouTube channel. It's just, I don't see it happening. But what I do like about it, and I'll talk about Lindor here in a second, Karen, what I do like about it is that it sends a very strong message that the Blue Jays are in a position where they can afford and are likely to pursue the package of Lindor Bauer, right? Like that to me is a huge takeaway to start the off season.
Yeah, definitely. I read that article. At least I got as far as the Blue Jays there, and I think, as you guys know, I tend to be one of the more optimistic Jays fans, and I'm sorry to have to say it, but even I shook my head a little bit when it said that acquiring both Bauer and Lindor would at least give them a chance to win the 2021 championship. I would love that. I'm not going to say it's impossible. Even I have to think it's a little unlikely. They do have other areas of need. So, but yeah, no, I those are the kinds of moves, not necessarily Bauer, because I feel about him similarly to you. And even on field, he doesn't, if they were to bring somebody in, it's probably not going to be Marcus Stroman, but Stroman, when he's healthy, has more of a track record as a very good MLB pitcher. Trevor Bauer on the field has had the 1 year that makes him look like an elite pitcher, and it happened to be 2020, which was lucky for him because he's a free agent now. And as we all know, 2020 was a 2-month season. So would he have continued to be this dominant had it been a regular 6-month season? We will never know the answer to that. But to me, he is not the answer, but even going out and getting a couple of very significant pieces, I'd like to see them do that.
Mm-hmm. So, Steve, Bauer, Lindor, package, and I say package, they don't come together. Obviously, they would have to trade for Lindor and sign Trevor Bauer. But again, the message here is that they are in a position to be able to do something of that nature, and seem likely or poised to do that.
Well, I mean, the Blue Jays, when you look at it, I think they have, $54 million on the books? That's almost unheard of in today's economic landscape. So that's a great position to be in because everybody knows the Blue Jays have money. I think they proved that when they signed Ryu. And Bauer, the problem with Bauer, other than being, a couple cards short of the full deck, is I really believe he's committed to signing 1-year contracts for the rest of his career. That would not surprise me. Certainly in the short term, he's going to do that. And is that money that could be spent elsewhere if you're only going to be guaranteed to have him for a year? Because Lord knows, it's almost like with him, it's almost like, the Beatles after Beatlemania, first you had sort of like you had Revolver, and then you had Sergeant Pepper, then they went up into the mountains of India and met with, the thing. He seems to have a different point of view every single year. Something new pops up where suddenly, this is going to affect what I want to do now. So that's my concern about Bauer is the 1-year contract. Lindor, what a great trade that would be. And I know he has said that he would play in Canada. I mean, Robbie Alomar is a very big idol of his, so that would be a nice fit for him. But Lindor has also been saying, I want to play on the West Coast. So my guess is it's a matter of which Los Angeles team can get the most Brinks trucks backed up to his agent's office to figure out where he ultimately is going to sign. And that's another thing. Lindor, really, for what he can bring, is relatively affordable, even if you lose him after 1 year. But you're going to have to juggle around your infield, a young infield still developing. Do you want to do that without an absolute guarantee? I see you shaking your head. Yes, yes, yes. Do you want to do that to your other young core players with the hope that you can sign them long term?
Yeah, that's a tough one for me. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you have to assume, right, that any kind of trade for Francisco Lindor would include some kind of extension. Or at least that would be the plan, right? And so what for me, what's interesting is this: like Francisco Lindor is a game changer for the Toronto Blue Jays. Like that's I know that's kind of stating the obvious here, but they can afford it, right? As Steve said, I think when you calculate arbitration and all of that, I think their payroll is projected somewhere around maybe 73 million or something like that. It's still pretty low, and they can absorb that kind of extension and be perfectly fine. And which I wouldn't care. Bo Bichette, second, third. wherever, don't care. If it means Francisco Lindor is playing for the Toronto Blue Jays, hell yes, I'm in. We're quickly running out of time here, and I wanted to get to and Joel Sherman wrote a piece, I think, at the New York Post about the Toronto Blue Jays being aggressive, having money, contacting free agents, and all of that stuff. Like, they're putting in work already. So very quickly before we do run out of time, Jim gave us a little bit of of homework, right? To choose one target.
You're the teacher, Sean.
Yeah, listen, I know. Yeah, but Jim thought that because I am a teacher that I would want to do homework.
Oh,
So thanks, Jim. But Karen, who's your one target this off season?
I mean, they have various areas of need. One thing I would love to see happen, that they've got some guys that are due for free agency, and a few of them could come back potentially and help the team. I really like Taijuan Walker, and actually it was Jim himself, and thank you very much, that pointed me in the direction of an article that I didn't really know about, but apparently this year Walker has changed his pitch mix somewhat, that he's got a four-seam fastball and a cutter, and he used to throw a lot more of the four-seam and a lot less of the cutter, and now this year he is down to, like, from averaging 55% of the time with the four-seam, this year it's down to 36%, and the cutter was anywhere between 6 and 15%, and now that's up to 22, and it seems like those two pitches, mixing them up, because the speed difference is enough to throw hitters off of balance, and you look at the results that he's had with both pitches, and it's been very, very good. It's amazing what you can do to a pitcher, that, the same repertoire, but just changing the way he uses things. So, I mean, I know he only pitched, what was it, 6 games for the Jays, but darn, he looked good. And I'd love to have him back. And it seems like if you believe what he's saying here and there on social media, it seems like there might be some interest on his part. So
Right.
I'm hoping they can get that done.
Fair. Steve, who's your one target?
Oh, wow. I want to go back real quickly to something that Karen had said. Walker has been able to add pitches because he's healthy for the first time since he was a rookie. And I think that makes it easier to be, to work in these pitches and be confident that you're not going to have yet another setback. So I think, Walker would be a great one. I know that Jim wanted me to talk about Chris Archer because he is one of my favorite baseball players ever, but he's going to join Reese McGuire in the fork drawer. Put the fork in him. He's done. It's sad. He's coming back from a tough surgery. So I don't know that I could go with Archer, but I've been thinking most of the day about Jackie Bradley Jr. You bat him ninth. I know, Karen. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, don't be sorry. I was making comments like that. I mean, we're all just kind of throwing out ideas. So
no, I know. But it just seems that I come up with the things that seem to just torture you the most, and I
no, it's fine.
So, and that means
if
I'm torturing the girl with Blue Jay colored glasses, I can only imagine what's happening on Twitter and on YouTube right now, the things that I'm saying. But Jackie Bradley Jr. checks off anchor in the outfield. You bat him ninth. He has a little bit of speed, a little bit of pop. I like having a potentially productive hitter at the bottom of the lineup so that when you come back up to the top of the lineup, they've got something to work with people on the bases. And defensively, I don't know, since Jim Edmonds, I don't know that I've seen an outfielder as good as Jackie Bradley Jr. So that would be my one choice. If I could put it under my little Christmas tree there, it would be Jackie Bradley Jr.
Right. I mean, that's not a terrible choice. As a matter of fact, I saw.
Plus, you're putting a dagger directly into a division rival. Win.
Right. I saw a brief Twitter conversation today, and somebody on Twitter was trying to claim that Randall Grichuk is just as good a defender as Jackie Bradley Jr. I didn't bother trying to disagree, but I thought, no, you're way out in left field there. I don't think that's a close one at all.
Wow.
Yeah. And I love Grichuk. I do. I'm hoping he gets traded to Pittsburgh so I have at least something to watch when I can't watch the Blue Jays. I at least have something to watch with Grichuk in center field here. But
so very quickly, I'm going to throw you my choice. We talked about reclamation projects. James Paxton. Think about it. Coming off a crap 2020 surgery on his back, very ineffective, but it could happen, and it could work in Toronto's situation, Toronto's rotation. I think there's something there, and Toronto could be willing to take a chance. I'm just throwing it out there, and lucky for me, we don't have time for you two to tell me I'm wrong, because we're just about out of time. So I'll throw it to you, Karen. Let everybody know how they can follow you and all that stuff.
Yes, I'm on Twitter quite frequently, and I'm at Karen Soutar1. That's SOUTAR1, and yeah, always on there, always chatting about this and that. Love to interact respectfully on both sides about baseball or most other things.
And Steve, your turn.
You can reach me on Twitter. I changed my Twitter handle specifically to show that your American cousin is 1,000% in on this year's Blue Jays. So you can reach me now. It is at US of Jays.
And you good one.
Thank you. Even the blind squirrel finds nuts. But also, as of 5:00 tonight, when free agency officially started, there is a new Toronto Blue Jay oriented group on Facebook, and that is the Fire Charlie Montoya group.
And you started that, right?
Yes. I felt that I need to do public service.
Oh, Steve.
Speaking of finding nuts, I joke, Steve. All right. Thank you both for joining me this evening. I do appreciate it. For all of our listeners, thank you for tuning in on the YouTube.
Thanks for all the questions. That was awesome.
Absolutely. It was a lot of fun. I appreciate it. For all of everybody's participation, it was greatly appreciated. It means a lot. Thank you so much for that. You can tune into these episodes every week on Facebook or YouTube. And of course, the audio version will be on Stitcher, Apple, Google, everywhere you find a podcast, you'll find it. Follow us on Twitter at Jays from Couch. Head to Jays from the Couch for all your Blue Jays coverage all winter. So for Karen, for Steve, for James Paxton, and Jackie Bradley Jr., this is Sean Doyle, hoping life gives you a juicy fastball down the middle and you don't miss it. Take care.